Hello everyone, I'm Mason and you probably already know who I am. Um I wanted to share one of my favorite things I made from school for my positive psychology class that I took in the first semester since I'm graduating soon and I will lose access to everything I've made. So, it'll all become pretty much lost media. So, we were going to title it this if we were choosing the presentation instead of an essay, and everything in here has a button with my sources. And this was one of my favorite things I made. I probably already said that. So I talked about Will Wood because Will Wood is my hero. And I know it sounds kind of hard to say, someone who struggled with addiction and mental health is your hero, but I mean, I don't know, just the way he carries himself and how he's gone through it and everything is really important to me. So the first slide is kind of just like explaining who he is, and I'm talking about his music and stuff like that before I get real heavy into this stuff. And then we were learning about happiness myths and like negativity bias and stuff like that. So he, from my research, was kind of in a place where he was feeling a lot of negative emotions because he's bipolar and stuff like that. Well, at least I think bipolar. I'm not 100% sure. I had like two sources for that. One was like an article, and then one was just me like looking up symptoms and like other things for that. So happiness hormone things, which is another slide on here. So I was talking about that and his indulgence into drugs, and how in the 90s there was the whole nothing tastes as good as skinny feels thing, and I talk about how that ties back into his music and how he was struggling really hard, and then he went to rehab and he got better, and then talked more about happiness myths, and we read a book called The Happiness Advantage, I think. So I had to tie it in with the book, and then I had to disprove the myth that he fell for to know, kind of show that I learned something in this class. And then I was like, okay, well, this reminds me of it because a lot of students suffer from depression because the Happiness Advantage talks about students in Harvard who are really depressed and they either get better from it or they don't, which is why kids in Harvard have like a lot of parties and stuff, is because they don't really know how to cope with stress and stuff like that. That's not as best worded as I could, but I'm not very good at explaining stuff. And then there's happiness hormones and stuff, which I kind of forgot which ones do which, but I talked about that. And then I had to research, like, okay, well, what do certain mental health conditions affect on your hormones? And I was like, oh, so it would probably lessen your ability to have and feel certain things. And that sucks because a lot of people deal with depression and stuff, myself included. So I talked about that, and then like changes in mood and stuff like that, and oxytocin, and how I've read that his wife goes to his concerts and handles like the merch and stuff. And I think it's really, really special that she's included in all that because some people, when they get famous, it kind of like their family and stuff ends up being secondary, and that really sucks. So this is kind of just more of like, Will's a really good person for being able to balance that in a way. Then I talked more about like happiness hormones and his strength and his drug history, how that affects that. And then he became a lot better because instead of using his fame to kind of like, I don't know, topple on with his mental health and stuff like that, even though he struggled, he learned to get better from it and actually really appreciated all the people that he had around. And then connected it back to the happiness advantage again, where I talk about how his fame didn't exactly make him happier. It was his mindset had to change for that to make it happier. And that is like my favorite project because I love Will Wood and I was so excited that I got to choose somebody I look up to talk about it. A lot of people when they did this would have chosen like NBA players, but not me. So anyway, that's it. Bye guys.